Good morning.
Morning, Coach. Thanks for a few minutes this morning. If you have a question, guys, please go ahead and hit your hand button, and we'll get to you here momentarily. First up will be Andrew Jones.
Hey, Coach, we were just talking to Mac about some of the way the offense has played recently, how Saturday night he said it looked a lot more like last year. And he attributed one of the things to the Senators, both Kieran and Brian, being healthy. Can you kind of expound on the importance of their role and the difference between when a center is 100% versus when he is 100% and how that affects the whole unit?
Well, I mean, truthfully, Andrew, it's tough when there's a guy at any position that's not at 100%. You know what I mean? It's difficult. So if you don't have a valid backup, it's a problem. And I think, at center, it gets exacerbated a little bit because that's the guy that really it starts with. He's the first one to touch the football. He's making all the calls for the guys up front. And it's tough if you don't have a center that can execute to get everything going. And that was probably the biggest reason we struggled up front against Virginia Tech. It stemmed from the environment hurting our ability to communicate. And then we're playing with a center that's not 100%. And you got to find a way to get it done anyway. And so I think we're getting healthier. Brian Anderson has gotten healthier as the year has gone on. We planned on having him from day one on healthy, and that didn't happen. And then Q, who has done a great job, filling his shoes. He has been playing hurt. So we've kind of rotated through those two guys. And I think now we're getting to a point as we get into the home stretch of this season where the two of them are as healthy as they have been all year. And they both played a bunch. So now they both have a good number of reps under their belt. They're pretty much as close as they've been to 100% as we've had them. And I would hope that bodes well for us for the remaining 4 games that we have.
Also, there was a time back in the day when people didn't view quarterbacks as tough guys. They didn't think they were all that tough. But these days, the way they get hit and the way they're such an integral part of the offense, you have to be tough. Do you ever sit back and kind of marvel at the toughness that Sam shows? And have there been some hits recently where you think, oh, man, he might not get up, but he does get up and he just continues to chug along?
Well, there's 2 things I'd say to that. One, I don't think that you can identify a good quarterback, a good, consistently efficient, successful quarterback that's not mentally tough. I don't know if I've ever coached one. So, yeah, I don't know how you do that at that position. So I think anybody that's out there playing quarterback that's starting and they're consistently efficient and they're winning games and they're leading their football team, there's going to be some semblance of mental toughness there because it's almost impossible to succeed at that position without it. Now, the toughness you're talking about is the physical toughness that Sam has. And I would tell you this, he's an absolute warrior in the weight room. They've got to pull him back from deadlifting or squatting or doing some of the other stuff, wanting to go for better single bests and, in an effort to kind of keep him healthy. And there's not as great a need for those guys to be maxing out on the squat and all that stuff at the quarterback position. And so, but I say that to give you Sam's mentality, and then he also, and I could be a little off on the yardage, but I think in his high school career, he rushed for like 3,700 yards or something. He ran for a lot of yards. And it was hard initially to get him out of that when he first got here. His first 2 games, which were wins over South Carolina and Miami, he made some plays with his feet and his running ability. He also took some shots. And I think after 2 successive games of taking some shots, he started to realize that sliding might be a little bit more prudent. So at times he slides and at times he doesn't. I think this year, because of our depth, and I've said this before, because of our depth in the quarterback room, and because of our need for greater production in the run game out of our quarterback, we are green lighting Sam in the run game a lot more than we have in the past. Had we had great depth in the quarterback room in the past, we probably would have been running Sam for 3 years. I'm glad we haven't had to do that. This year, as I said last week, we're probably headed towards 2,000-yard rushers this year. One of them just happens to be our quarterback. And so, ball security and running the football and handling some of that stuff and getting more reps doing that stuff in practice has become more of a priority because we need him to be the dual threat quarterback that he's been this season.
Thank you.
I can't hear you, Mark. I'm sorry, you're on mute.
Yes, sir. Yep, excuse me. Greg Barnes, go ahead.
Good morning, Phil. Sticking with Sam, last year, everything kind of went great for him. This year, there's a little bit of adversity early, played great Saturday night, of course. I'm wondering about his impact in the position group room, in dealing with adversity and helping the younger guys along, specifically this season.
Well, I think what you get out of Sam is even keel all the time, right? I always say you don't know if he's winning by 40 or losing by 40 because of his demeanor and the way he handles himself. And I've said that that's a huge asset for him. But this year, I've been impressed with Sam because I think he's had to deal with a very different cast around it. He has different weapons, maybe not as many weapons. And you still have to find a way to win and put points on the board and score. And, in this situation this year, he's coached guys in practice on a regular basis. He's really taken the time and put the effort into coaching the younger guys. He brings the younger guys up to our quarterback meetings, when they come back in the afternoon and we watch practice and when we go through calling games and all that. So that's been something he's done a little bit different to try and bring along the younger running backs and the younger receivers. He throws with them after practice. And I think probably the most impressive thing from a quarterback standpoint for Sam is he's done a really good job, and he's gotten better and better each week this season of managing the bad plays. Damage control, we hate talking about the negative things, but there could be more TFLs, more turnovers, more sacks, more negative plays if your quarterback doesn't do a good job controlling negative plays or potential negative plays, and we call it damage control. And I think he's done a great job of that. And that sometimes that just means throwing the ball away instead of giving up a sack. You know what I mean? And sometimes it means taking off and running the football instead of forcing the ball into coverage. But those are areas I think from a leadership standpoint he's helped, from a production standpoint he's helped, and I think he's done an exceptional job of doing what I ask him to do every day, and that's taking the weapons that he has and utilizing those. Even though it's so different from last year, we got to utilize them in a way that gives us a chance to attack the defense anyway and score points. And he's starting to, and I think the entire offense is over the last 4 or 5 weeks is starting to realize, here's what we have. This is what we have to utilize, and that's what we've been, that's what we've been calling on to attack the defenses that we're playing.
CL Brown, go ahead.
Phil, what was the key Saturday to getting the outside receivers more involved in the game?
So I'd like to say it's something overly strategic and schematic on the part of the staff and take credit for it. But the truth is those guys are getting better, CL. They're doing a better job now. They feel a lot better. They got more reps under their belt. Been there, done that kind of thing for them right now. It's not the same as some of these young guys at running back and at receiver, particularly experiencing different situations for the first time. So I think that's the biggest key. The second thing is we have done some things schematically to help them. And then I think overall we are trying to target them a little bit more. And Sam from a throw standpoint is trying to target them, and we are from a play calling standpoint are trying to target them more. And really, I think Antoine Green's lack of production this year has come from not getting him enough targets, and so we're gonna try and get him more. And then I think with the younger receivers, it's been about just developing them and doing some things schematically to get them open. And as I said last week, we benefit offensively when we can distribute the ball to everybody. And that was a huge help to us against Notre Dame on Saturday.
And of young guys getting better, might we see a little bit more of Nesbitt in the passing game? He obviously had a solid game on Saturday.
So Nesbitt had probably his largest role in the game against Notre Dame. So it has consistently increased. both in the number of plays that we have on the list when he's out there. I think we're probably comfortable calling just about anything in the offense now, whereas that wasn't true in weeks 3, 4, 5, right? So now we're to a point where he has it down mentally, and we want to take advantage of, the athleticism that he has and the tools that he has. And so his role will continue as long as he's healthy to expand and grow. And I would point out at tight end, we got into the season with Garrett Walston, who's already a proven commodity. And then we've gotten an improved Kamari Morales. And now we have Bryson Nesbitt, who I think might be our best guy out in open space. So those three have become a greater component in the offense. And I think that'll continue to go in that direction.
Thank you.
Ross Martin, go ahead.
Hey, Coach Longo, I wanted to actually stay on outside receivers. We didn't see any of Emory Simmons against Notre Dame, and his play has kind of decreased recently. And along the lines of Choppy Brown transferring, what's going on with those guys, given the fact that I think we expected both of them to be impact players this season? And anything to say on that? Is the emergence of other players? Is it something to do with their play?
So I missed part of what you said, Ross. Can you repeat the question for me?
Yeah, we didn't see any of Emory Simmons on.
Oh, Emory, you said, okay. It broke up and I couldn't hear. So the reason Emory didn't play really, I think, was just that we started with Justin Olson. We just had this conversation the other day. It really had nothing to do with anything Emory did or didn't do. He had a good week of practice like he always does. He's probably one of our most consistent guys, from a dependability standpoint. Justin Olson was running good routes and getting open and producing, and we were in a tight game. And I think the mentality at any position is if things are going well with a certain clientele or personnel out there, we're going to roll with them for a little bit. And it was just a matter of Justin Olson playing well and not needing to come out for fatigue or anything like that. And so we rolled with him for a little bit, much like we did with Antoine Green. We probably played fewer receivers, which was not what we expected to do. Played fewer receivers on Saturday than we normally do, but they were playing well and they were getting the job done. And so we stayed with what was working. It really had nothing to do, Ross, with any lack of performance by Emory. Justin has had some really good weeks of practice. He's done a nice job catching the deep ball and getting open underneath. And so we went with him first and he was playing well and we kind of stayed with it.
Okay, let's go to Aaron Beard.
Hey, Phil, I wanted to ask you just broadly about what Downs has done this year. The numbers are pretty incredible. People expected good things from him this year and thought he had an opportunity. Allowed him to maybe take this huge leap forward this year in his first full-time role, so to speak.
So, Aaron, he's always been the athletic product that he is, right? I think the two biggest differences between last year and this year, one is knowledge of the game and knowledge of the offense. Last year, he's a really bright kid and he's a really intelligent football player from a football knowledge standpoint. So it was never a problem him learning the offense, but there's still the experience factor. So he understands maybe how to run mesh, or he understands how to run 4 verticals, but he hasn't had the reps against all of the multiple coverages that we see, both man and zone. And that's the thing that holds back younger guys sometimes. So the first half of last season, he played behind Daz Newsome. We had an established veteran at the position. And then as he started to understand and get reps with all of our plays against all of the different looks that we see, it became more apparent that he understood how to handle all these different situations. And so we started to heat him up second half of the season. And, as I've said earlier in the year, it kind of culminated in his effort and the day that he had in the Orange Bowl at the end of the season. Going into the spring, we heated him up, so we ran all of this stuff and he became the guy that was playing in Daz's spot. And he quickly showed us that from a knowledge and an experience standpoint that he was ready to do it. So we were actually, because of his spring development, able to come into summer camp and into the season right away in game 1, doing a lot of the progressive things you do with a great athlete. We're doing some things right now with Josh Downs that you don't typically do with even solid receivers or good receivers. You have to have a special kid that can change direction the way he does. You know, I had a really good conversation with Drew Brees on the field before the game on Saturday, talking about just that, talking about Downs' ability to change direction 2 and 3 times with certain routes, stutter. You know, one of the things that Drew was so impressed with, that we are also impressed with, is his ability to change gears. You know, I've always talked about speeds with receivers and skill kids is, you know, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th gear. And there's some guys, Aaron, that don't have a 5th gear. You talk to them about a 5th gear because you want them to feel good about it, but some guys don't have a 5th gear. Josh does. You know, and he can go from 3rd to 2nd to 5th in a blink of an eye, and he can change direction with all that. And so that kind of separates him, I think, from a lot of people at that position. You know, and I've been very blessed, as I've said, you know, in the past, to have had some great slot receivers. But Josh overall, and I am not saying he's the best one we've had, I think overall he's the best clear change of direction guy that I don't know if I've ever had a guy at the slot position that changes direction better than he does. You know, and we've had some really, really good ones, including the Daz Newsome, who we had here last year. But I think that's his specialty. I think that's what makes him elite. And, you know, hopefully he continues to have the season this year that he's been having.
All right, last one for Coach. Luciano, go ahead.
Hey, Coach, I hope you're doing well, and thank you for your time this morning. I don't know if you've had much time to watch a lot of film on them yet, but Wake Forest defense had a really good game against Duke, but had been very vulnerable in their past 3 games. Would you say that they have turned it around based on their performance against Duke, and how much is there to learn from that game?
You know, there's 2 things that go on when, and I've lived on the other side of that, when you're scoring a lot of points, right? I think what happens defensively is for them, they're getting better every week too. That's a good staff. They're well coached. You know, they're in position. And what's happening is you're seeing a steady improvement with their defense as each week goes on. You know, they're getting better and better at the things that they do. They've stayed the course. They're sticking to the plan, and they're doing what they do, and they're getting better at it. So I think we're probably going to see a Wake Forest defense with more confidence this week. And then the other thing that happens is when you're scoring so much, you know, when you're scoring so much and you're on the field so much and you're putting up so many points, you force sometimes the opponent's offense maybe to get more aggressive or to call and run more of their prolific plays. They may have to take some chances to try to stay in the game and be competitive in a barn burner. You know, you get behind 21-3 or something like that, and it really changes your plan. And so what happens is, you know, Wake Forest defense is going to see a lot more of the bigger plays, the prolific plays, the explosive plays, and they're going to be out there on the field a little bit more. So, you know, it's a little bit more of a challenge. I've always felt like when you put 7 points at the back of the defense, that's the best position to be in. But I think we're going to get Wake Forest's best on Saturday. I think we're going to see some things maybe they haven't done to take some chances to try and get to Sam or to load the box and shut the run game down a little bit. And we'll just have to wait to see what those changes are to make our adjustments and attack Wake Forest.
All right, Coach, thanks for a couple minutes this morning. We appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thanks, fellas. Have a great week.